Good evening, everyone. Today's session is on interests, generating of options and solutions, and the criteria for putting in place the solutions and options. We'll just go through a PowerPoint slide. Yes. So till now, what we have emphasized all along is that the significant feature of mediation is that we try to understand the true reason for the issue, and then we try to address that here, true reason for the issue, and we try to address that particular difference point, the true reason for the problem. Now, this true reason can be the need behind the behavior. It can also make us understand why a person is behaving the way he is doing. It can be a very strong motivation. Like, for instance, it's a driving force. You don't understand why it is that a person is behaving the way he is doing, because there's some underlying motivation that is making him behave the way he is doing. Now, the significant feature of interest is most of these areas, almost all, are intangibles. You have to sense and understand them. It's not like property, wealth, and so on. Like, for example, a person may go to great extent, spending lot of money, trying to prove he is rich, and this might be leading to issues at home or elsewhere. But the thing is that he has this thing for a reputation about being generous, about being rich, which is very important to him. So when we are dealing with an extra spending person or any such case, we need to keep in mind why it is that he is behaving the way he is doing. It's not really about spending. It can be anything else about reputation. Now let's look at the security aspect. Let us assume that there is a dispute between a sister and a brother. And on deeper delving, it turns out that the sister and brother, the point of dispute is a property dispute. On deeper delving, it turns out that both of them are interested in this property because this is their place of stay. It gives them security, it gives them shelter. The sister is married, but her husband is not there, and the brother is although married, he doesn't have a place to stay, and this home that their father has left is a place that is offering security to the two people. So when they are contesting for this particular property, the underlying need is, or concern is, their worry about security or a place to stay. So I had mentioned while looking at Maslow's need hierarchy, to understand what is it that is driving a person to act in the way that he or she is doing. Now, it can happen that a business opportunity can also be an interest area. Like, for example, a person, he may be very interested, he may be out of turn, very interested in a particular foreign posting. He is kind of obsessed with it. To an onlooker, it is not understandable because it doesn't provide much of monetary or pecuniary gain. There is no additional position attached. There is nothing that is visible to ordinary eye. But it may happen that this particular foreign place or posting may be giving the person business opportunity which he is very much interested in. And then sometimes we find contest, conflict between, let us say, a husband and wife going to great lengths to get custody of a child. They're going to pay, they're willing to pay any amount of money for the custody of the child. The underlying reason for this is the relationship, the bonding that is the driving force between the the bonding that is prevalent between each of the parents and the child. Now, in certain cases, recognition. In certain cases, in workplace disputes, we often find this. Two people may be contesting, why is it that they did not get a particular promotion? Now, even otherwise, even without the promotion, they may be doing well monetarily and in every other way, but the promotion is an answer to the underlying interest for recognition. So these are some of the areas that can be the driving force, the motivation behind why a particular person is behaving the way he does. So we need to have a checklist of these as a mediator and try to understand why is it that a particular person is behaving the way he does. Now, next we come to option or solution to the problem. Now, what is an option? Option is the answer to the need or interest that a person has. So the answer can be anything. It can, because in mediation, it is the parties who decide. The parties can generate as many solutions of varied nature as they want, because this is based on what parties want. The resolution is not imposed by anybody else. Now the thing is, does it mean that when an option is generated, does it mean that that has to be the point of settlement? What I'm trying to say is, when a particular option or solution is voiced, does it mean that that has to be a solution? No. What the option means is it does not mean that the option is point of settlement. One need not decide based on option that is voiced. It can be, this is the point of debate between the two parties on what are the various ways in which the problem can be resolved. Now, the commitment or settlement is reached towards the end after exploring various options that are voiced. So the most important area in mediation is facilitation of communication between the two people, and with improvement of communication, the parties will be voicing as many options as they can think about. Let's do this, let's do that way. And towards the end, both of them will sit and think about what is the solution that meets the need of both of them at one point in time and is acceptable to both of them. Now, the solution, like we had already discussed in yesterday's class, for simple issues and non-commercial ones and so on, it's okay for the two people sitting with the mediator to settle the issue and the resolution will be put in place. However, in workplace issues, in commercial issues, and so on, certain rules have to be followed. So these rules are the benchmark or the criteria based on which the options that are generated can be made into solutions for the problems. Now let us see what are the criteria or benchmark for an option to be accepted for the resolution process to be put as a settlement agreement in formal context. For an option to be considered as fair here, the option should be considered fair, like in the case of promotion, in the case of property disputes, or any other formal disputes. The resolution process, it has to be considered fair. For this, there are two ways. One is the objective standards. We'll be looking at the objective standards shortly. And then the method has to be fair. The fairness in procedure can be through taking turns, like both the parties, they get an opportunity, each gets an opportunity to voice what they desire or what is it that they think is suitable for them. And it can be through choosing of lots. And as already stated, the mediator is already a neutral third party. So certain amount of fairness is already there in the process. Now, how is it that the criteria or setting of benchmark can help in the mediation process to ensure that it is fair? How can the criteria be assisting the mediation process in ensuring that it is fair? One, it can facilitate in mediation. It can be used to direct mediation. How can this be done? For instance, the mediator and the councils, they can cite certain rules which are prevalent, which say that this particular resolution is, it has precedence, it is acceptable as per law. So it helps in facilitation and in giving direction to the mediation. And also sometimes the options that are generated by the two people, in case they are not acceptable to the people who are going to implement the settlement, then it can be a face-saving method. Then the person who is in the management seat or a person who is facilitating the implementation of resolution, he can say, yes, I agree with you, but this is not allowed as per rules. So he's taking the assistance of a particular rule to save his face, for face saving. And this having a criterion or a benchmark, it gives credibility to mediation. That is, the results that one is getting out of resolution of a dispute through mediation is justifiable. It's not like two people sitting together and deciding. Like for instance, we supposing this justifiability and credibility, measure of fairness, sticking to rules, all of these areas are not followed, then anybody can do anything. For instance, there can be benami transactions, like two people say, okay, I'll give you this, you give me that, and then we do the registration. But then, can it have validity? No. Now, these going by these objective standards and following the rules, it gives credibility and justifiability to the results. So we'll see how the criterion is put in place. Yes, here. So one of the ways in which a particular criterion is put in place is through precedence. Here, let me give you an example. For instance, I thought a lot about this. We have this Mahindra group, which is into different kinds of business. It has the holiday group, then it has education group in Hyderabad. I think they have a university. Then it is into vehicle manufacturing. We have these Mahindra Trio and electric cars, all of them coming into the market. Then it is also into computers. So these are some of the things that I know of. So let us presume that there is a particular consumer who is not satisfied with the way the holidays are being handled for him. He's not getting the bookings when he wants to. And there are repeated calls from the call center for payment of annual fee. And, nobody picks the telephone calls up when booking has to be made, or for any kind of inquiry, or there's no physical human being anywhere. So in order to take care of himself, the client, he goes to the consumer court and he says, look, I would like to have the amount that I paid for the holiday scheme to be reimbursed by giving me a vehicle to the tune of this amount. Now, this can be settled by the mediator and by the party if there is a precedence of this kind. Of course, rules, of course, will be there. That may be one of the things. But they can also look, is there something like that which has been done before? In case yes, then the option can be considered to be objective. If something like that has been done before, they must have done it as per rules and their procedures within their particular company. And taking this as a leverage, this particular option can be considered and put forth for higher authorities for their approval. So this is an example of precedence as well as using of rules within the company. It just came to my mind offhand. It may not be very much relevant to the context of precedence. It may be more relevant to usage of rules in the company, but then you try to look at the perspective with which the example has been cited. Now let's look at the custom and tradition part. Let's presume we have an example of two people into a dispute, matrimonial dispute. Let us look at. And they want to separate, and the woman, she wants the bride wealth that is given by way of jewelry and so on to be given back to her when she is separating. So again, I'm not familiar with the laws and all that. Just to emphasize the importance of custom and tradition in setting of objective standards, that's the only issue I'm dealing with. So maybe as per their custom and tradition, it is agreeable and mutually acceptable for both the parties to have the jewelry returned to the woman if she wants to return to her house post separation after the marriage. So if there's some custom like that, a tradition like that, that also is taken as an objective standard. And then we have umbrage of laws. I've mentioned here mutually acceptable law. Now this word mutually is very important in mediation in the context that the parties are deciding on how to go forward with the resolution. So the law that they are taking as an umbrage for objectivity to see whether the options that are generated, the resolution process is objective. Both of them have to believe in that particular law. Otherwise, again, there will be another kind of a dispute about your law and my law, your country law and my country law, and so on. So a mutually acceptable law can be the objective standard for putting in place the option as a solution. Now the next is the industry practice. Now let us say we are evaluating the performance of a particular employee in the industry. So how do we do it? For this particular industry, it can be that they are evaluating based on the key result areas. And the key result areas may have various parameters, like for instance, discipline, then various aspects, output and expenditure and coming on time, vacation, reporting, chain of command. So many parameters may be there in the key result areas. So all of these are already there, put in place by the particular industry, and based on this, the objectivity of the options is looked into, and this becomes the objective standard. Based on the key result areas, the evaluation of the performance is done, and this evaluation is taken as a benchmark for the promotion. Then we have standard operating procedure. Now we have a rule book, let us say even in a college, where the students, the employees, they have to come on a particular time. Then certain holidays are followed. Then there is a certain uniform and dress code that is followed. So many things are put in the rule book. So this is the standard operating procedure. So in case a letter has to be signed by the principal in a college, the method is that it is put to the head of the department first, and after the head of the department forwards it, only then it goes to the principal for approval, and the principal in turn may put it for approval to the board of directors if it's, let us say, a case of scholarship for a particular student. So this might be the standard operating procedure that is followed by a particular college for giving scholarship to a particular student. Now, if this standard operating procedure is followed, it means that a particular option or solution is considered to be objective and fair. Yeah. So it is important for the options that are generated to be objective as well as fair in for the solutions that are generated and implemented for the mediation process to be effective as well as successful, and for people to believe in it. So basically, today's session was on when we are generating options, it is very important that we follow the rules, the precedents, whether it's being done before and whether there are any customs that are followed, then whether there are any standard operating. Each industry or place might be having certain operating procedures. All of these are the measures of fairness that the solution and the option has to follow. Otherwise, even a mediation, it, like I already stated, a Benami transaction, you're just legitimizing it through mediation if you're not going through the process of criteria. You're not following the benchmarks. You're not following the objective standards. Then the mediation settlement is unfair. Mediation settlement, that is one of the biggest riders in mediation, and this is being contested. So we are also having a mediation body. There is consideration and talk about having a mediation body, and a lot of deliberations are going on the mediation bill on this particular point in India and across the world. In fact, in the European Union, they have this, they are not willing to sign on the Singapore Convention on this particular point. The mediation process, how can it have legitimacy? With just two people signing it and you're giving it the status of a court decree. How can you do it? So this is what they're saying. So we need to be very careful in understanding the scope of mediation. It is at this point in time, the rules and regulations are still being debated. We are going to have the mediation bill shortly. And this talk is a precursor to some of the discussions that will be coming on the floor of Parliament and even outside before putting it in place as an act. So thank you. And with this, we conclude the session for today. Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.